Our general understanding of peace here, especially those in government who want to, score themselves, they are often the examiner and an exam candidate at the same time, so they often score themselves. So most times, the way they define peace, there are two types of peace we can look at. There's what we call negative peace, which simply means the absence of war or absence of violent conflict, or just the absence of fear of violent conflict. So when people are not killed, kidnapped, harassed, violent protests, we often term it peace. And that's exactly why some people will boldly see a rigged election, we have vote buying and intimidation. We are the order of the day just because nobody died. They will say it was a peaceful election. On the other hand, there is what we call positive peace. And positive peace has 8 pillars. We will discuss it in the long run. But when the governor declared, when I read the news about the constitution of a committee to bring peace or to maintain peace in Okigwe zone. Meanwhile, I'm from that senatorial zone, so I understand the issues there. When I heard it, what came to my mind is yet another committee. But it is consistent with Nigerian pattern of responding, the crisis response is a pattern across the country. It is always ad hoc, it is short-term, it is reactive, it is never, a proactive measure. And then most importantly, it is a personality-driven. So they gathered very prominent or respected individuals from the zone and put them in a committee. And because they are influential, they hope those people will be able to influence the actors that, may be involved in the insecurity and crisis we have in the region. So in that way, we are relying on their influence. But those you can't sustain it. As I said, we will discuss about the 8 pillars of peace, and then see how what they are currently calling peace is not really a sustainable peace, and what they are doing actually is not really the solution to what we have.
Based on the available data and field reports from places like Okigwe, Onimo, Ehime, Bano, and the rest of them, would you actually say that the current situation reflects a sustained improvement in security or a temporary calm? I think you've actually explained it in just what you just concluded, what you just said now by telling us the way the government do their things. But what indicators should the public look at when we are talking about this peace, both long-term and short-term?
Okay. Probably 8 pillars of peace will explain if Okigwe senatorial zone can tick any of the boxes. The first is good governance.
Okay.
Right? A well-functioning government. That is the first indicator of sustainable, positive peace. So in Okigwe zone, and there are 3 indicators. I will just limit my listing to just 3 indicators or 2 indicators of such peace. If you want to talk about good governance, you want to look at how transparent the government is and rule of law, right? So does anybody know how much any local government in Okigwe zone budgeted for 2026? Does anybody know how much the local government, 6 local governments receive every month in terms of allocation? Does anybody know how much the local government, I'm just saying local government because I just want to start by limiting this conversation to Okigwe zone, but then it's something you can copy and paste in every other part of Imo State, and it is true. So when governments are not transparent, it is not an effective government. So in that aspect, you can't tick that box, right? The second element of positive peace is what we call equitable distribution of resources. Okay. The governor often buy very expensive, exotic cars for traditional rulers and legislators. Meanwhile, no health center has an ambulance. No public school in this region have school buses that can take the children of the poor man to school and bring them back. So there is no fair, equitable distribution of resources. Politicians seem to be richest people amongst us. No functional society, rewards public servants in such a way that they become the richest in society. It is a call to serve. So there is obviously no fair distribution of resources. You can't tick that box again for Okigwe zone and by extension Imo State. The next one you can look at is a free flow of information. I just said it. Does anybody understand how difficult it is to access information, especially non-classified information from government? Government-held information is one of the most difficult to access in Imo State. There is no functional website where anybody can access details of contracts, awards, procurement processes, and all that. You often hear government has employed probably after they would have concluded the process. So it is difficult to access information in a system that does not allow free flow of information. It is not a functional government. So you can't say that pillar of peace is gone, you can't have it. Another one is the good relations between neighbors. And this one has to do with non-state actors this time around. People are on the edge. There's seemingly lack of trust among the people. And it you can also blame it on the high level of politicization and partisan politics we bring to everything, even community leadership selection and traditional. You see politicians interfering that creates all sorts of bad blood among people. So there is incoherence in what people even agitate for, because they lack the capacity to unite and rise above their differences and forge a common cause. So that pillar of peace is not there as well. The fifth pillar of peace is a high level of human capital. You can measure human capital investment in how much the functional level of public health, public education, especially the basic education, right? And it is almost non-existent. I was telling somebody recently that Imo State's public schools may go extinct very soon. Anybody who earns over 100,000 naira will not send their wards to public schools. They will look for private school, no matter how bad it is. That is how low our public utilities and institutions are currently, right? Another thing you can look at is acceptance of rights of others. Human rights abuse is the order of the day in Imo State. Tiger Base is a testament to how low we have sunk. Everybody, everywhere, is complaining about human rights abuses by state and non-state actors. For so many years, agitators of or secessionists have taken it upon themselves to enforce what they call sit at home. It's a pure violation of your freedom of movement, your freedom of association. So non-state actors are also contributing immensely to the decline of human rights in Imo State. So both state and non-state actors have actually violated the rights of the Imo States. And in this context, from Okigwe people, low level of or high level of corruption. The corruption in this country is very high. As I said, if you write to government demanding details of contract award using FOI, freedom of information, you will meet stone walls. They hardly share such information. They hardly beam lights on how government procurement processes are going. And to a large extent, it looks like justice in the country is for the highest bidders. Those who don't have resources cannot get justice in Nigerian courts as we have it. So these are indicators that corruption is very high. And Nigeria ranking in the Transparency International Corruption Perception Index. Indices is very, very low, one of the worst in the country. And finally, sound business environment. Of course, in any environment that does not have sound business, you can't say there is peace there. So what I just said, before you can effectively say you have brought peace, you have to do what we call P analysis. P means political, environmental, and crisis analysis. Unless you effectively analyze your political environment, your economic environment, even social environment, you can't, in all honesty, say you have brought peace. But if you subject Imo State to any of these analysis, you will see it is not possible to bring positive peace in Imo State as we have it. We need to, first of all, build institutions that will sustain, instead of this ad hoc approach to peace building. I think when we begin to build institutions that outlive one tenure or one regime, then we can say we are building peace. But for now, we may say, I'm not taking anything away from the committee, but the most they can do for us is the negative peace. And negative peace is not really good enough for us. We deserve more.
So thank you so much for that. I think I've gotten something which is ad hoc approach to peace building. Okay, so there's something called ad hoc approach to peace building. I've gotten that. So moving on, the government has actually set up a fact-finding and implementation committee for rehabilitation, as they said. So in your view, what does the creation of this committee signal? Does it actually bring about confidence? Does it bring restored peace? Or does it just bring about acknowledgement of past failures? Or is it actually a strategic move towards reconciliation and rebuilding?
I wouldn't want to prejudge what this committee can do, but I just want to set this example. When Udochukwu had altercation with street traders at Toronto, where someone was shot dead and properties worth millions of naira destroyed, we tried to engage the victims, and they were too scared to talk to us. They said they would be harassed. We actually went to Tiger Base. I don't know what Tiger Base was doing in that case. But so many people were arrested, detained by Tiger Base. People who tried to speak up, who tried to share information to the extent of their knowledge. People were intimidated to speak up. So what's fact-finding ordinary means is this committee will go out and ask people about the experience and document it. And people may be very scared because they have been victimized in the past. And also, the non-state actors, the agitators, will also seem to always intimidate people who want to speak up as well. So what guarantees will this committee or government give to people who will be willing to talk and who will be doing so at so much risk, right? So a lot depends on the government, not on this committee. And that's why I outlined all these pillars of peace, that it is really government work. There's no committee that can. I'm saying this being a member of several peace committees, what we try to do is to build a system. It is not a short-term reactionary ad hoc committee that can fix this thing. So to the extent of the resources the government has made available for the committee, I believe they will be working with the full backing of the governor. But they need to win the trust of the people, which is in very short supply. The government hasn't shown enough commitment to protect the rights and integrity of Imo State. The singular fact that Tiger Base still operates in Imo State is a testament to the fact that government is not doing enough. So to what extent will people trust this committee? But because they come from the people, they are reverends, they are priests, so people may trust them to speak up. But what can they do? I heard them say, fish out perpetrators. I didn't see them lay emphasis on bringing justice to victims. So if it is not victim-centered, it is already designed to fail. So I will advise if I may, let them do more, survivor or victim-centered approach. And most importantly, it should also be system thinking approach. Because if you move in to arrest people or to point fingers in these communities, then you will end up like every other committee setup. So I would like to give them the benefit of doubt. But one thing is certain, whatever they may come up with will not be enough, because it requires institution building or repositioning existing institutions. The police lacks the capacity and integrity to even police the environment because of their records of human rights abuses. And the agitators who are also part of, they have their own claim of, corporate. They are also guilty for making Okigwe zone very, very, very unsafe. But they have demands, they have legitimate concerns. The way they are going about it is what I totally disagree. But that sense of injustice has not been addressed. So that is why peace and justice always go together. You can't bring peace without addressing injustices that exist. So unless governments effectively and publicly show interest in addressing the injustices that exist, no one can actually bring sustainable peace.
Wow, thank you so much for that. I don't know if I'm to say that these are actually wise words. Anyway, thank you so much. I believe you're actually an expert when it comes to peace building. So you're actually speaking from experience and expertise. Okay, moving on. Talking about rehabilitation. The government talked about rehabilitation and the rest of them, but we know that rehabilitation addresses physical damage. Okay, when you talk about rehabilitation, you're talking about physical damage. But what's measures, what socio-economic that should actually be put in place to ensure that such insecurity doesn't, come back again to these communities? And then this community that is already set up, how do you think they can address issues of youth unemployment, community distrust, and security architecture that are not, addressed?
Okay, talking about rehabilitation, let me start there. There are 3 levels of peace management, especially violent conflict. When it ends, there is rehabilitation, or yes, you first of all recover the people involved, recover both their arms. There is rehabilitation, there is reintegration, right? And there is reconciliation. So they are talking about rehabilitation for now. Rehabilitation goes in 2 ways. Rehabilitation of people who probably volunteered to give up their arms and pursue peace. Because if somebody is still actively perpetrating violence, you expect government to use force to stop such people. But when they come up with a clear conscience, you can welcome them and the process of rehabilitation can start. Rehabilitation process takes time. It's not, it takes time. You need to, first of all, remove them from the environment that, where they became what they are, and then put them where they can receive both psychological and physical rehabilitation. Many people have been hurt, so that is why reconciliation is very, very important. Before you reintegrate people back to the society where they have hurt people, or where they will be meeting the perpetrators on daily basis, you need to first of all reconcile. And that's exactly what they did in Rwanda. After the genocide, they did everything they could to reconcile the people before they can reintegrate them. So it's a long-term, very robust process. I don't know the mandate in full for this particular committee, but that rehabilitation takes a lot of resources and expertise. That is why peace experts are very, closely watching this process. We will talk about economic opportunities. It's almost non-existent. Go to our communities now. There is no opportunity, no internet connection, no electricity. Virtually, the economies of these communities are dead. These communities lack the capacity to engage resourceful persons. So critical skills are lacking. That is why when anyone graduates, they leave the communities. Meanwhile, these are the skills you need for the economies of these communities to thrive. And that is why I say sustainable peace requires system thinking approach. You need to look at things holistically because these factors work interconnectedly, right? They are interconnected. Poverty drives criminality. That's why you see high level of kidnapping for ransom. There is all sorts of internet fraudsters, claiming to be community champions these days. So before you can effectively address unemployment and lack of access to opportunities in these communities, you need to put in place infrastructure, at least energy infrastructure, road and internet infrastructure before you can attract any skills in these communities. Opportunities don't exist. If you ask yourself, if you watch something like Olympic Games, you see 13-year-olds winning medals for their countries, like China had a 16-year-old girl still in secondary school, winning gold medals for their country. Do you think there is any community in Okigwe zone that has a school with modern sports facilities that can equip them to compete, in Olympic Games? No. So when we talk of opportunities, children there have no opportunities at all. The only thing they get is maybe every 4 years, politicians return there and mobilize them and recruit them for politics and political violence. So opportunities don't exist. But until you address these issues, peace will remain an illusion. That's why I think committees can't, bring peace. It is only a responsible and responsive government, and it requires a system change. The system as we have it cannot give us peace.
Wow, thank you so much for that. It is only a responsible government that can actually give us peace. I think you've actually said what I want to ask you, which is the last question I have for you here. Let's still go ahead to ask that. So for this particular intervention to move forward, because just like we've actually clearly stated, some of our community members in these places where this insecurity has actually, been on the high for these past years, it's actually not funny for them. Just like you mentioned, I can't actually see or even imagine a child of 13-year-old from Okigwe, from Olu, coming to, represent or even defend the country or state in any both academic or sports-related competition because of how bad the situation is over there. So if you're actually, let's just say you have the opportunity to meet the state government or to meet the state actors and talk to them about this particular issue, because this is an issue. It is actually an issue. People actually think, okay, the government actually came out to say there is peace in the state, and then that is it, there is peace. But when we analyze these things, we bring out the strengths and the weaknesses of such, public posts, headlines, and the rest of them, which will actually help the state government if they should, critically look at what we are talking about to adjust what they already have in place to make things better. So if you're given the opportunity to meet the state actors and talk to them about what is happening in Okigwe and the measures they are taking to effect peace, what will you actually tell them? What interventions or innovations or measures should governments take to make sure that there is progress and then trust is rebuilt in these affected communities?
Okay, first I will ask them to do what they are called to do. Government is called to maintain law and order. But most times what we see is political actors are the real source of disorderliness. Simple traffic rules, they don't respect it. So what I will call the government is, first of all, begin to invest in the people. The people who failed to invest yesterday are the ones terrorizing us today. And as our public life continues to degenerate, people will always be in desperate situations to do whatever they can, including unwholesome things, to survive. So the government should begin to invest in communities, invest in capacities to adjust, to adapt. First, as I said, there is no single community that has a functional, when I say functional, I mean hospitals or health centers where women can deliver safely with functional, well-equipped ambulances. If anybody has an accident in my local government in Ihitu, Burma, there is no equipped ambulance that can go to the accident scene and convey victims to hospital. How do you say such is a functional society? There is no public school in my local government that has a functional, well-equipped science laboratory. None with well-equipped libraries. So when you fail to invest in people, you're robbing them the opportunity, to solve their problems tomorrow. So I will first of all tell them to invest in the people. Secondly, our security approach is very flawed. Bringing guns to every issue of insecurity is not it. Some of them are social in nature. So there has to be a renewal of social contract. Local governments are the centers of development closest to the people. The average local government in Imo State receives an average of 500 million naira every month. Average of 500 million naira. Local governments are not accountable. Zero accountability. So they need to be more accountable. Systems need to function. Systems need to work very well. So when people lack trust in the system, they can't even engage it. So government needs to invest in our non-tangible assets, which is trust. It's a brand. They need to rebrand. Infrastructure needs to be provided in these rural communities. There's no internet connection, there is no electricity, there is no road network, no water, there's no community, no local government in Imo State has, running pipe-borne water. You will think after 2019, COVID-19, you will think we will be desperate to invest in, access to water, considering how hand washing was one of the most critical, factor that saved millions of lives. Yet no school, or I would say 99% of public schools in Imo State don't have running water, right? So we need to be more proactive instead of reactionary to peace building, which is to invest in the people, invest in the capacity of our institutions to provide the best services to our people. The ad hoc approach can be to use military or police force to engage criminals, because no matter how much angry you are, no matter how aggrieved you are, you don't have any right to take other people's rights of free existence or free movement. So for those who have legitimate reason to agitate, I'm calling on them to have a rethink on their approach. And government should also use maximum force to clamp down on anyone who threatens the life of another person, right? But securities don't almost exist in Okigwe zone. I went to Obo local government police, what do you call it, police station. They don't even have adequate security for themselves. I went there and I saw police officers cutting grasses. So the police force is understaffed, terribly poorly motivated, and it's a very highly, corrupt institution. So we need to also look at how we can reform the system. It's a long-term approach. The short-term approach will be to begin to create job opportunities for people, take them out of the labor market so that the bad ones will not recruit them. Where you have criminal gangs easily recruit young people, then you have a time bomb in your hand. Boko Haram didn't just start because someone somewhere started a terrorist organization. No, all the conditions were perfect for a terrorist organization to start and thrive in Borno State. And the dangerous thing is all those conditions are present here. So the ground is fertile for any criminal gang to come into Imo State and thrive. So for peace to thrive in the state, institutions need to get it right, and people need to have the sense of belonging. We haven't discussed inclusion here, which is a critical component of peace building. Unless people have that sense of inclusion, that sense of belonging, they will continue to act in a way that undermines peace in the state.
Thank you so much. That's actually a nice one. Thank you so much.